Hey everybody, this is our virtual mini lesson about writing arguments, chapter 15. If you were to go to the stock issue questions section in your outline packet, you'll see that that's actually right before the outline starts. There are 5 blanks for the stock issue questions, and on page 331 of writing arguments, chapter 15, we have those stock issues. You need to be able to go through each of those and just make sure that your proposal is working for each of those stock issue questions. Number 1, is there really a problem that needs to be solved? And on your outline packet, you can actually write or just note yes or no, hopefully yes. Question or stock issue 2, will the proposed solution really solve this problem? Can you be sure that the thing you're suggesting will actually improve the problem you're writing about? Over on page 332, stock issue number 3, can the problem be solved more simply without disturbing the status quo? So the example of the wall from the Pacific Ocean to the Gulf of Mexico is an example of a proposal that would fail on stock issue question 3. Is there something simpler? I mean, if there is, then maybe that's what you should be proposing. Which is not to say that a difficult proposal isn't one worth arguing for, but if there's something that is simpler and more effective, then you would go with that. Stock issue 4, is the proposed solution really practical? Does it stand a chance of being enacted? Now, with a policy proposal, sometimes you'll kind of aim high or suggest something that may not be adopted fully, but you still want to make sure that your proposal exists in reality. For example, a few years ago, I had a student who wrote a proposal or started the process and was suggesting that NASA go into outer space to try to find like fuel to solve our oil problems. That ain't gonna happen. And then stock issue 5, and this I actually want you to think about, and we'll probably discuss more on Monday. What are the unforeseen positive and negative consequences? We talked about the California condors, for example. Cleaning up the beaches meant the birds didn't have as much food. There will always be unintended and maybe even intended consequences of something you're proposing. Think about that for a minute. What would be possibly negative consequences? And you need to be aware of those potentially for your rebuttal. Okay, moving on in your packet. Over to the confutatio section, there is a little prompt there that says like address or list the possible objections people would have. If we go over to page 338 in writing arguments, there's a section that says like critiquing a proposal argument. And your rebuttal is going to address some combination of these following like skeptical positions. First question you could ask yourself, will a skeptic deny that my problem is really a problem? And there may be people who say, nope, that's not an issue, in which case you would need to address them in your rebuttal. Top at 339. Will a skeptic doubt the effectiveness of my solution? Some people might say, yep, it's a problem, but I don't think what you're proposing would actually fix it, in which case you would need to address those people in your rebuttal. The third one, will a skeptic think my proposal costs too much? So some people might say, yes, it would work, but financially it's unrealistic. For example, the wall. However, a proposal that costs a lot is not necessarily ineffective. If you were writing about, for example, renovating nuclear plants, I have a student who's writing about that, saying that nuclear reactors need to be upgraded. And in the short term, it would cost a lot, but in the long term, it would actually save money. Then that's how you could respond to those objectors in your rebuttal. And then fourth, will a skeptic suggest counter proposals? Like, are there other options or other suggested actions different from what you're suggesting? So you need to identify if any of those would apply to your solution. Are there people who are going to say, nope, it's not a problem, or nope, your solution's not going to work, or yeah, it would work, but it would cost way too much, not worth it, cost benefit analysis, or nope, my idea is better. In the rebuttal, you actually then state briefly but fairly like the opposing view. Many of these are going to come from your pro-con second section, the con section. You can borrow from that as much as you want. A student in another class actually said, though, I don't think I have a rebuttal, like nobody would be opposed to it. Well, unless the thing you're suggesting is already in place, like everywhere, there are people who object to it. So the fact that you're suggesting something that isn't the status quo everywhere means that some people disagree. They either think there's not really a problem the thing you're suggesting wouldn't work, it would cost too much, or other ideas are better. So try to figure out as well, like, why is it that we aren't already doing the thing I'm suggesting, or that not everybody's doing the thing. In that rebuttal, you'll write the objection, the opposing view, and then it's very important that you restate, however, and again, why you think your proposal has merit. And you want to address or tailor that, however, to whichever kind of skeptic would have a problem with your proposal. If somebody says it's not a problem, then you would, however, and restate why it's a problem. If people say your solution wouldn't work, you want to restate why it would work. If people would say that it costs too much money, you need to restate how it actually would be worth the money in the long run. Okay, the next part of the outline that I want to talk about is in the reason section. Now, we discussed this last time in class that you'll have 3 reasons. You predict them in your thesis, and then you address them in the body paragraphs. In each reason, you're giving whys and hows. I mean, it's basically the supporting points of your claim. We should legalize marijuana because of this, this, and this. At the end, or somewhere in each of those reasons paragraphs, you're going to need a statement of warrant. In the pro-con, you had to have at least 1. In this paper, you're going to have at least 3. 1 warrant for each reason. And it does work really nicely at the end of the paragraph, but that's not the only place it can go. You could also work it in the middle of the paragraph. And I want you, before class on Monday, to have those warrant statements written out. That each reason should then have like a confirmation. And at its heart, the warrant statement is reason is good or reason is bad. If I say we should legalize marijuana because it will generate revenue, the warrant, the underlying view of that reason is that generating revenue is a good thing. Now, why do we state that if it's so obvious? One, because Tolman found that successful attorneys actually did state the unstated assumption. It adds or elaborates on the point of our paragraph. It also can help us to see whether or not our audience is likely to share that warrant. Sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't. And then when we look at the warrants of all of the reasons, we can determine if there's at least some reasons that will appeal to our audience. So for Monday, I want you to look through those stock issue questions and particularly anticipate any unintended consequences that might come from your proposal. I also want you to write up the paragraph on that will go at the beginning of the rebuttal, like why would people be opposed to this, borrowing from the pro-con, but also addressing those 4 particular skeptic positions. And then I also want you to have your warrant statements for each of the reason. A draft of the proposal for revision is actually due on Wednesday, a week from today. Now you've got plenty of material. You actually have, all of the parts of the pro-con that you can recycle in the outline, but this is the time where I want you to start pulling it together. I'm a big believer in outlining first and then writing, or, pasting in the sections of the pro-con that are going to work. That way you're confident that it's well organized. Additionally, you need to get your 2 primary sources lined up. Conduct the required survey if you haven't, or arrange for the interview if you haven't done that. And you can have 2 interviews if you want, that's fine. But you have to have at least 2 secondary sources, and you're going to want to have those in your draft for Wednesday. Thank you for being flexible, and here's to good argument. I will be sending your annotated bibliography stuff or your pro-con works cited pages with corrections in the next little bit, and I will see you on Monday. Don't hesitate to email me at blinenglish@gmail.com if you have any questions.